Welcome into another edition of Sports Junkies. Time to talk some Brewers baseball with Greg Giesen of the Racine Journal-Times. I'm Steve Sparky, Fifer from the Wendy's Big Show on Sports Radio 1250 WSSP. Well, the Brewers season is upon us. Time now to make some predictions, see where everybody's got the Brewers. Let's talk about some strengths and weaknesses at this point. If I asked you what is the strength of this Brewers baseball team is right now, Greg, what would you say it is?
Up the middle defense. You got a good catcher in LaCroix who's also can hit, which is a huge bonus. Even his backup in Maldonado can't hit, but defensively he's strong. You got Gomez in center. Segura is a decent enough fielder. He's pretty good. Right. Don't have any problems there. Scooter Gannett, hopefully, is doing well at second. You have good defense up the middle. That's a core. That's a necessity. Hopefully, if you say Ricky Weeks, there have been rumors he might be sent out to the Rangers. Hopefully,
Rangers made a trade for a second baseman. I don't think that's going to happen now. But yeah, that is a possibility. But again, Ricky Weeks making $11 million a year. I don't believe it. I think Ricky Weeks is going to get a majority of the time early on in the season because if he plays well, they're going to use his bat and go from there. The weakness of this Brewers team, in your opinion?
Age at third base and at first base. You have your corner where you're supposed to get a lot of your offense, and we can hope that Aramis Ramirez stays healthy. But in terms of his age and the wear and tear that he's had on his body over the years, it doesn't look good. He's old. I don't trust that he's going to be there for 162 games or even 150. You look over at the other side of the diamond, they are better than they were last year at first base because they were historically bad at first base.
Sure.
But that's like saying a kid who's repeating 8th grade is going to be better the next year. Yeah, he is, but that's not necessarily what you want at that position. And, you have a guy that swings for the fences and a guy that can hit doubles. And, that's not necessarily what you need at first base either.
What do you want at first base? You can't have Prince Fielder.
No, you can't have Prince Fielder, but at least give me someone who's going to hit for average and maybe hit, a Mark Grace type. I don't
That's
necessarily.
a doubles hitter.
But a guy
sounds
that's
like Lyle Overbay.
But he isn't going to hit 300.
No.
I want someone that can at least hit 300.
Oh, yeah. So
that's what I want. It doesn't mean you're going to get it. But that's what I want.
Okay, you want to put together the quintessential all-star team around the diamond. And I understand that.
That would be nice, wouldn't it?
I would love to do that too. And this is the one thing I'll say to that is, the owner of this team forces Doug Melvin to give up a number one pick in order to go get Kyle Loesch. They signed Matt Garza. They don't have to give up a pick, fine. But you could have given up a pick to go get Kendry Morales to fix first base and move on. And Morales could have played first base. That would have been essentially the perfect guy that you're talking about to play first base.
Yes.
But if they do that, then they give up on Hunter Morris at AAA. And I'll be honest with you, this is it for Hunter Morris. If Hunter Morris has a year similar to what he had last year at AAA, they're done. They're going to go get a real first baseman to put in there for the next 4 to 5 years. I think that is going to be their next move. I'm not as concerned about Aramis Ramirez at all. I'm really not. I'm not really worried about Segura. I know he's got the shoulder thing. I'm not worried about Segura. Second base, I don't like Ricky. I'd rather have Scooter Gannett. First base, I would have kept Juan Francisco. I never would have signed Mark Reynolds to begin with, and I would have went with Francisco and Overbay. I'd much rather. Francisco's 26 years old. 26. He works out with Big Poppy David Ortiz in the offseason, all that. Remember David Ortiz, he developed later. I mean, he should have been a star for the Minnesota Twins, and that happened later. So Francisco could be that guy. Carlos Gomez, if anybody would have kept him other than the Brewers, could be this guy here on one of these other teams, but they gave up on him too quick. I think Francisco comes back and bites the Brewers and then behind later. So I didn't like that. The outfield positions, I'm okay with Braun and right. I'm fine with Gomez in center. Chris Davis in left defensively concerns me greatly. And I'm concerned about his bat, too. I mean, if you're going to ask me who concerns me the most of this entire lineup, 1 through 9, it's Chris Davis. He does not have a huge sample size in minor league numbers. This is against what Doug Melvin always preaches about how many at-bats he wants in the minor leagues from these guys at each stop before they get moved up. But they must like him a lot, so he's going to play in left field. He'll be a wild card offensively. Pitching staff, I think the key to the whole team is in the starting pitching, and it rests on the shoulders of Willie Peralta. He's the X factor. If Willie Peralta is more consistent than he was last year and pitches at the level that he showed last year as we went through the season, and he showed in his last spring training start, if he pitches at that level, this Brewers team is going to contend for this division.
I don't know that they're going to contend, but they're going to be a lot better than they were last year. You also need Gallardo to come out of the blocks.
I'm not worried about Gallardo.
You know what?
No concerns about Giovanni Gallardo. None. He's playing to get a new contract, number one. There's no way his on-the-field and off-field life is going to be nearly as bad as it was last year.
No, that's
He's going to have a good year. I'm not worried.
You've been waiting
I'm
for that
taking
good
him
year.
in fantasy baseball, too.
I like Giovanni Gallardo. I like what he did in the second half. I want to see it for a year. We've been waiting for this breakout, this leap to being a number one starter.
It doesn't have to be. No. Don't just have a 3.5, 3.7 ERA. That's good. If he is 3.5, 3.7, Loesch is 3.5, 3.7, Garza and Peralta, if all four of those guys are sub-4, they're set. That's all. That's literally it. Now, Marco Estrada is the 4 guy as we come out of the blocks here, and Peralta is the 5. For the record, let me say, I am not on the Marco Estrada bandwagon like Ron Renneke. I'm not. He's home run derby. So, from my aspect, I'm not a big fan. But when healthy, he has shown he can put numbers together, and then he gets hurt, whatever the case may be. We'll see if Estrada pans out.
Do you trust Henderson and...
Yes. Henderson to K-Rod? Yeah. Not worried.
Not worried at all.
And I know the guy who I co-host the post-game show with, Tim Allen, I think has reservations about Henderson going forward. We'll see. We'll see what he does. I'm not as concerned about that, no.
I like that they brought K-Rod back.
I loved it. It was a huge signing.
Even if Henderson does falter, you do have that backup.
Exactly.
It's not ideal, but at least you have some depth in your bullpen.
Yep.
That's important because if you do get those starts and you do have those ERAs where they're at, someone's going to have to be closing the door at the end. And at times when they didn't have that 2 years ago, that's what destroyed that team.
Right.
Was that you didn't have a closer at the end and you had quality pitching. This year, if you get that, it's a big if in my mind, but if you get that quality pitching and you have the bullpen, you're set. The big question, though, is how do you see them finishing? Because they're still a very good division. You still have the Cardinals sitting there in first.
Yes. Cardinals, I think, are the favorite, but I don't think the Pirates got better. They lost Burnett in the offseason. I don't think Cincinnati got better in the offseason. Cardinals, I think, actually improved in the offseason. I think the Brewers end up right there in second place, around 90 wins, and probably in a wild card spot in the NL. And that stupid wild card format where they play one game to see if they can actually play in the real playoffs, which is going to drive me absolutely insane. But I think that's where they end up. They contend for that wild card and probably get it.
I think that the Pirates end up ahead of them. I think that when you look at their pitching staff, this is a big if Liriano can put 2 good years back to back, which he never has seemed to do in his career. If he is able to do that, and you have Garrett Cole up there, I think that's a very solid 1-2. Going forward, I feel pretty good about that. The big question with the Pirates I see is that, okay, you have McCutchen. You have Marte, who just signed his extension.
Yep.
What offense do you have there?
Right.
Where are you going to get those runs to support that pitching
That's
staff?
another team that's been looking for a first baseman, I should say. Why don't they go get Morales? For the life of me, I do not understand. I mean, I get the first-round pick compensation is an issue. I get it. But if you're trying to do what the Pirates are trying to do, which is break through, why just not give it up? You're not going to be as bad as you've been in years past. It's not like you're giving up a first overall pick in the draft. Why wouldn't you just go get Morales and fix first base for the next 4 to 5 years?
And this is always, especially with the Brewers last year with Loesch, but this is my philosophy with it. Baseball, unlike the NBA, unlike the NFL, your first-round pick, there's no lock. There's no guarantee with that one.
There's more of a lock at the top of the draft than there is
at
middle
the
to
very
late
top.
in the first round.
But even at the very top,
guys miss.
Sure, it's going to happen. Brian Taylor with the Yankees is the historically awful one.
Yep.
But my point is if you can get somebody good for 3-4 years right now, and you have that window, and you believe you can contend, and your pick is not within the first 5, give it up.
Yeah.
Just give it up. I mean, it does not. And the Pirates, in this case, don't have a top 5 because they had a great season last year, made the playoffs. Give it up. Just go out and get, if that's a piece that you need, because last year they went out and got Morneau. That didn't solve it.
See, and that's the reason why I don't think the Brewers will give theirs up, because of how bad they were last year.
Right.
they don't want to give that up right now.
And I can't blame them for that.
Neither can I. You're
I
going to have a
would-
legitimate chance at a pretty
that
good
one,
player.
Yes, that one I would keep.
Yeah.
But if you're in the bottom 2/3 of that draft, I don't have a problem with giving up your pick. But even with that, to go a little bit back to first base, I'm not saying that an all-star at first. I'm just saying a solid contributor who's going to. Corey Hart would have been nice at first base.
Corey Hart has been awful. Corey Hart has been hurt in Seattle to this point in spring training. Mm-hmm. Corey Hart has been brutal. There's talk that he may start the year in the minors. That's how bad Corey Hart's been. So we'll see what Corey Hart does throughout the course of the year.
I trust that more than what they have now.
Fine. Oh, and I hear what you're saying.
Right.
But I don't know if Corey Hart's going to be the same. We'll see. We'll have to wait and find out. Your pick, I'd say second place, 90 wins. Where do you got him?
I say third, about 80 wins.
80 wins in third?
Yeah, I think the Reds are not going to be as good.
Okay. Greg Giesen of the Racine Journal-Times, Steve Sparky Fifer with you. That'll do it for a Brewers edition of Sports Junkies right here at RacineSportsZone.com.